Chapter 3, Section 7, Ethics in Data Collection. In this section, you will learn fundamental concepts of ethical consideration, privacy and confidentiality, consent and transparency, and how to ensure them. Privacy and confidentiality are fundamental principles of ethical data collection. Privacy refers to the individual's right to control access to personal information and determines who collects, uses, and shares data. Confidentiality entails the responsibility of those who collect and process data to protect it from unauthorized access and disclosure to third parties without the individual's consent. Maintaining privacy and confidentiality is critical in data analytics using machine learning because these models often rely on large amounts of personal information and sensitive data. Ensuring privacy and confidentiality protects individuals from the harm of identity theft and misuse of their data. It also helps build trust with users and stakeholders, which is essential for the long-term success and widespread adoption of machine learning applications. There are several challenges to ensuring privacy and confidentiality in machine learning projects. The first is data sensitivity. Machine learning projects often use inherently sensitive data, such as email communications, financial data, and personal health records. Such data can be a serious privacy concern, especially when individuals have not consented to use their data to train machine learning models. The second issue is data aggregation and re-identification. Even when data is anonymized, a risk of re-identification remains. Combining datasets from multiple sources sometimes allows an individual's identity or other sensitive information to be inferred, which can compromise privacy. Third-party access is another issue. When data is shared with third-party vendors, partners, or service providers, the risk of a breach of confidentiality increases. It is essential to require these parties to protect confidentiality and privacy, but it is difficult to monitor external entities thoroughly. The fourth is data breach. Unauthorized access is a serious risk that compromises privacy and confidentiality. The growing threat of cyber attacks can lead to the breach of confidential information, and there is a possibility that individuals and organizations will be affected. There are several ways to address these issues. The first is informed consent. Informed consent is the provision of clear and comprehensive information to individuals who provide personal data about how their data will be collected, used, and shared. The information provided to them should include the purpose of data collection, the type of data collected, the period of data storage, and potential risks and benefits. Individuals should have the opportunity to give their consent voluntarily and should be able to withdraw their consent at any time. The second is data minimization. Data minimization refers to collecting only the data necessary for the project's specific purpose. By limiting the amount of personal information collected, organizations can reduce the risk of privacy and data breaches. The third is anonymization and pseudonymization. Anonymization removes or changes identifiers from data so that individuals cannot be easily identified. Pseudonymization is the replacement of identifiers with pseudonyms or codes. These measures make it possible to track individuals without identifying them. The fourth is data encryption. Data encryption is converting data into a secure format that cannot be accessed without the correct decryption key. Encryption protects data from unauthorized access, and even if data is intercepted or breached, it prevents unauthorized third parties from reading or using it. The fifth is access control and auditing. By implementing strong access controls, you can ensure that only authorized individuals can access sensitive data. Access should be granted based on the principles of least privilege. That is, individuals should have the minimum level of access necessary to perform their job. Finally, ensuring transparency and accountability is important. Companies should ensure transparency about data collection and processing practices and provide clear information to individuals about how their data is used and protected. In addition, companies should establish accountability by appointing a data protection officer and conducting privacy impact assessments to ensure that data handling is in line with ethical standards and legal requirements. As a matter of ethical consideration, consent and transparency are also essential. Consent refers to the voluntary agreement of an individual to allow the collection, use, and sharing of their personal data. Consent must be given after being fully informed. In other words, individuals must be aware of everything they need to know about the content of their consent, such as the purpose of data collection, how the data will be used, and any potential risks involved. Transparency means that organizations should be open and clear about what data will be collected, why it will be collected, how it will be used, and who can access it. There are several reasons why consent and transparency are important elements of ethical data collection. The first is respect for autonomy. Consent must be given by an individual with full information and respect for their autonomy. Respect for autonomy is a fundamental ethical principle that ensures data collection is fair and not coercive. The second is building trust. Transparency builds trust between organizations and individuals through clear and honest communication about data processing. If individuals understand how their data is being used and are confident that it is being handled securely, they are more likely to trust the organization and its data collection methods. Third, compliance with legal standards. Consent and transparency are legal requirements in data protection regulations, such as the European Union General Data Protection Regulation and the U.S. California Consumer Privacy Act. These regulations require companies to obtain informed consent from individuals before collecting their data and to provide clear information about data processing. We need to address several issues to ensure consent and transparency. The first is the complexity and volume of information. One of the challenges in obtaining meaningful informed consent is that the information about data collection and processing is often complex and voluminous, making it difficult for individuals to understand. For example, legal and technical terms as well as long privacy policies make it difficult for individuals to understand the content and may undermine the legitimacy of consent. The second is implicit consent. For example, using a service or website without explicitly agreeing to the privacy policy could be interpreted as implicit consent, even if the individual was unaware of the data collection practices. Such implicit content can blur the line between whether or not an individual has given consent and can be an ethical issue. The third is the use of data beyond the original purpose. Sometimes we want to use data collected for one purpose for another purpose, for which the individual did not initially consent. However, such secondary use violates the principle of informed consent. Companies can take several measures to address these issues and maintain ethical standards in data collection. The first is to provide simplified, accessible information. Companies should summarize information and highlight important information so that individuals can quickly grasp the main points. The second is to provide detailed consent options. Such options allows individuals to choose the types of data they are willing to share and how their data is used. For example, rather than a single yes or no consent, individuals should be able to consent to collect data for specific purposes, such as marketing, research, or personalization. The third is clear and concise privacy notices. Privacy notices should be clear, concise, and displayed at the point of data collection. These notices should include information such as the purpose of data collection, the types of data collected, how data will be used, and the rights of individuals. Using visual aids such as icons and infographics can help to communicate this information more effectively. The fourth is regular updates and notifications. We should regularly update and notify individuals of any changes in privacy policies and data collection methods. The fifth is to establish an opt-out mechanism. In other words, we need to ensure that individuals can withdraw their consent at any time. We must communicate the opt-out option clearly and easily accessible, such as by using a simple link in an email or setting a page on a website. It is also important to appoint a data protection officer and conduct privacy impact assessments. These measures demonstrate a commitment and accountability for ethical data management. These are guidelines and principles that we can use as a framework for these ethical considerations. Although we will not go into detail about each one, companies need to design measures for ethical considerations when collecting and using data according to these guidelines and principles. In this section, we have discussed ethical considerations in data collection. Privacy and confidentiality are important in ethical data collection. Measures such as informed consent, data minimization, anonymization, encryption, and access control effectively ensure privacy and confidentiality. In addition, consent and transparency are also essential for ethical data management. Providing users with sufficient information about data collection and its usage is critical for ensuring consent and transparency. Moreover, it is important to provide simplified information, detailed consent options, and clear privacy notices to make consent meaningful and maintain transparency. Thank you for watching. Please thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.